AskReddit. What's the worst/most awkward way someone has tried to seduce you? I went to an anime convention with a friend. I had no interest, just went along. This incredibly awkward guy in a full body Pikachu suit stared at my boobs for a good 5 minutes before saying my mom made this costume for me. Want to see what's underneath? You're really pretty for a brown girl. Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. In what world would saying something like that result in a good response? A newish friend invited me to his housewarming party. I was only one of 3 people invited, but didn't know this until I arrived and saw the table set for 4 people. My 2 friends in attendance, a married couple who were trying to set me up with him, were in on it. The night turned into this awkward double date situation. He took us all on a tour of his home, which was nice until my friends mysteriously disappeared once we reached his bedroom. I poked my head in and tried to walk on because I started to get weird vibes from him and felt strange about going into his bedroom alone. But he insisted that we check out his closet. Once inside, he tried to make some moves and told me I could have 3/4 of the closet space when I eventually move in with him. He already had a couple of my things hanging up in it too. These items of mine were things I had lent to my married friend, and she brought them along to help him, so I could picture myself living with him. I was totally creeped out by this point. He didn't need to go to those lengths. If he had asked me out on a date like a normal person, I would have said yes, but after that experience I was way too weirded out. I eventually fell out with my friends who introduced us cause I couldn't trust them anymore and was suspicious of their intentions whenever they'd invite me anywhere. I was working at a big box retailer in the fine jewelry section. My future husband's whole family had stopped by to visit. As I was chatting with them, a guy walked up and I went over to greet him. He then went on to try just about every single watch we had in the store, including the cheap ones that aren't behind the glass. This means I had to break open the packaging for each cheap watch so he could try it on. This whole time my future in-laws are watching this and giggling. The guy was chatting about random stuff. I think he said he was a professional dirt bike rider and stuntman. I was polite, hoping I would at least make a sale. Then stuntman asks for pen and paper. I grab it for him and then rush to help another customer. My future husband joined his family at the counter. The stuntman got his attention and said, "Yo, check this out. This is how you hit on a girl." And my dear husband replied, "Nah, I'm okay. She's my girlfriend." And the stuntman quickly crumpled up the paper in his hand and ran off. No commission for me. Later, as I was walking back to the break room to grab my stuff after my shift, I found the piece of crumpled paper on the ground. It said, "I just met you. This is crazy. So here's my number. Call me," maybe phone number included at the bottom. I was so glad I was able to dodge that Carly Rae Jepsen bullet. It was less than a month into my freshman year of college and everyone in my co-ed honors dorm was just getting to know each other. My new nerdy dorm mates who were trying to make new friends were always making the rounds room to see if anyone wanted to get together for social activities. So I didn't think twice about it when this guy who I'd hung out with in groups, if 10 plus people on a handful of occasions, came by my room, knocked on my door, asked if I liked rock music, and wanted to go to a concert later that night on campus. Assuming it's going to be a group thing, I say yes and ask if we are going to grab dinner before. He says sure, and we'll meet up in the common room beforehand. I walk out there in my early 2000s California scene/emo kid attire and my dorm mate is standing in the common room wearing khakis and a polo. No one else is there. I'm uncomfortable and awkward, and in the foolishness of youth have no idea how to get out of this, so I don't say anything. We end up grabbing sushi off campus instead of going to the cafeteria like I thought we would. We make forced conversation and it's not terrible, but we clearly have nothing in common. The concert we end up at? This anti-Bush/Iraq war punk show. I was down for this kind of music and politics, but the person I've now realized is my date just stood there stiffly while I'm ready to rock out. The whole experience is uncomfortable, but we stay through the show. On our way back to the dorm, he hardly talks, but when we get to my room, he asks if I had a good time and I say it was fine. He takes my lukewarm assessment of the evening as his opportunity to come in for a kiss. This is just too much for me at this point, so I stop him politely, thank him for the evening, and tell him that I just want to be friends. He then says goodbye very quickly and practically runs to his dorm room. He stopped hanging out in groups with the rest of us. If I was there after that, I felt a little bad for the guy, until I found out later from others in the dorm that he definitely thought his plan was going to help him lose his virginity that night. Pretty sure he stayed a virgin that year. One night I was at some of my guy friends' place after they had a party. It was late and there were only a handful of people still hanging out. I was sitting in the living room and this guy I have met a few times before comes in and starts excitedly talking to me about how he has wanted to get to know me, blah blah blah. Next thing I know, he's singing "Your Body Is a Wonderland" to me, subbing my name for all the US. Edit. Oh, hi everyone. To add you this mess, he was wearing a light yellow cable knit sweater and I'm gay. I don't think I've ever found men more unattractive in this moment. Let's see. While nursing, I've had an older male patient offer to be my sugar daddy and pay my tuition. Once at the mall, a creepy 30-something-year-old guy offered to buy me $500 worth of merchandise at VS, as long as he could watch me try it on. Growing up in LA, I had to deal with porn recruiters after school. Granted, they weren't trying to seduce me, but it was still a sex-related mission, or whatever. What would your brother think if we were having sex? I'm not sure this was even a seduction. Lol. An awkward 17-year-old boy asking this to an awkward 14-year-old girl. I was super creeped out though. This isn't a unique story, but I'm not a fan of being asked out on a date in the context of let's hang out sometime. I had one particularly bad offender with this, and I'd say it's the worst. I knew this guy in one of my college classes, and we worked together on a couple things. He kept saying we should hang out sometime, and I said sure. Then it became obvious his idea of hanging out was going out on a date, but he wouldn't call it that. Just kept saying he wanted to hang out sometime. But then he suggested dinner, just the two of us on Friday. Like, sorry, the plans you're suggesting are a date. This phrasing puts the other person in an awkward spot because I didn't want to turn him down for just hanging out, but I had no romantic interest. But saying that bluntly makes me sound presumptuous because he would never call it a date. I turned him down for dinner at first, and he kept offering different days. For what it's worth, I eventually agreed, and it was definitely a date. He invited me back to his place. I said no, and we never hung out again. This actually happened a few days ago. A guy who was expelled from my uni because of sexual assault sent me 46 pictures of me he had collected through the year we had met with the excuse found these in my computer, thought I would give them back. You see, most of those pictures were pics I uploaded to social media. Why would you give them back? The rest were pictures he took of me while I wasn't looking. Of course I didn't want those. My sole response was thanks and the blocked me right after. Not sure of what he expected. At least my boyfriend and I had a chuckle out of it. I'm a foodie, and as plain as they sound, I do really like dinner dates. Before the date a guy said, "You like to whine, and I'm before you get fucked." That was you, Chris. Looking at you, Christopher. Just being naked. He said beforehand he likes to sleep naked, so I assume getting his clothes off is normal while talking before sleep. He was couchsurfing host. I tried to not show my discomfort, it was his home, his rules, and warned me beforehand anyway. After leaving his place he asked me if I get seduced from his nakedness. Nope. He was naked, but he wasn't trying to impress, so I thought this was his normal and didn't want to turn it to sexual, just because I wasn't used to that. We didn't even talk about anything sexy, unless if you aroused from PS4 games. His question afterwards made me realize I was just naive, and he wanted to get sexual attention. Probably sucking my fingers. I understand it's a fetish amongst most, and that people like it, but I don't. I pretend to enjoy it. I mean, you're really putting yourself out there if you start sucking on somebody's fingers. I'm not in the business of hurting feelings. Chatted me up walking to the metro. I wasn't even sure I knew him, but he treated me like he knew me. He looked suspiciously like the guy at the till I bought my headphones at 15 minutes prior. He also never said my name and started by asking what music I was listening to, which kind of cements my belief I had never seen this guy before. He gave me a few compliments, then started talking about Yu-Gi-Oh and Minecraft and didn't stop until I had to get off on my stop. I didn't get a single word in.